I reread Quicksilver so you don't have to. Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Elena and here we talk about books. Brimstone is coming out on November 18th and this is your ultimate guide to Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I'm going to talk about everything you need to remember to jump into book 2. I'm not wasting any time because there's so much to discuss, so we're going to jump right into the world. The main character is Ceres Fane. She lives in Zilvarin, or the Silver City, which is essentially a desert and there's very little water. She lives in the 3rd ward, which is under quarantine for no good reason. It is also the poorest area of the city. Essentially in the 3rd ward, they say if you weren't dead or dying, you were hungry. Ceres steals in order to survive. The queen of the city is Madra, and she is human, but somehow also immortal. For most of the book, this is pretty unclear. In the Fey realm of Yvelia, led by King Bellicon, there is a centuries-long war between the Fey and vampires led by Malcolm. The passage between the human and Fey realms has been closed for a very long time. Humans don't even really know about Fey. They think they either don't exist or that it's just a story being passed down from generation to generation. Let's jump into the beginning of the book and how the main plot is set up. Ceres Fane is in a part of the city that she shouldn't be in. She left her ward and she is escaping from a guard. She almost gets caught, but she ends up stealing the guard's gauntlet and she gets away. The gauntlet has about 4 pounds of straight metal, including gold, and Ceres has access to a forge where she plans on melting this down and selling it. This is the first time that we get introduced to Ceres's alchemy skills because the gauntlet whispers to her. Pieces of quartz rise up from the sand and say, "She sees us, she feels us." She gets back to her ward and her close friend and glassmaker Elroy is in the forge and he sees the gauntlet. He is very upset with her for stealing it. She shoves it in her bag and she goes on her way to rescue her little brother Hayden from some trouble that he's in again. Hayden and Ceres don't have parents. They don't really have a home. They're kind of just squatting above a tavern. Hayden is younger than Ceres and she finds him at a tavern where he lost a bet and he lost some of his things. Ceres decides that she's going to go in the tavern and she's going to get those things back from the person who Hayden lost to. That's Carrion Swift. She leaves her backpack with Hayden, tells him to wait outside for her. She's talking to Carrion. Carrion's hitting on her. They have hooked up once a few months prior, but she just wants to get the stuff back and get out of there. Carrion knows that she has the gauntlet and he tells her, "Hey, I can take care of it for you. I can hide it for you." Ceres goes to get her bag, but it is empty and Hayden took the gauntlet. She goes after him, but the guards got to him first. They think he's the one that stole it, and she jumps in and takes the blame. She's escorted to the palace by Captain Heron. Heron takes her to this vaulted room that they call the Hall of Mirrors. She's waiting for the queen to arrive and talk to her and try to get some information out of her. While she's waiting in the room, she notices that there is something sticking out of the ground, but she can't really tell what it is. Queen Madra eventually appears and she says, "I know the Fae put you up to this. They want to kill me. They want to come after me." Ceres has no idea what the queen is talking about. And then Madra just says to Heron, "Kill her, then kill her brother, and then burn down all of 3rd ward. We don't need it." She leaves the room and Heron is about to carry out these orders. So he stabs Ceres in the stomach and then he starts to twist the blade. He leaves this blade inside of her and then he also stabs her in the shoulder. He stabs her in one shoulder, and then when he goes for the other one, she stops the blade and she liquefies it. At this point, she doesn't know how to control this yet, so she's not really sure what she's doing, but Heron is freaking out and the liquid is going on to him and it kind of makes you crazy. She gets up with the sword sticking out of her stomach still, and she goes to that object that was in the room. It's a sword. Later we learn the sword is named Solace. She takes it out of the ground. This wakes the Quicksilver pool, so there's a pool in front of her now, and out of this pool comes a man. He puts a necklace on her, and he scoops her up, and he takes her back through the pool. She wakes up in Yvelia, the Fey realm, and she meets a bunch of Fey, which she didn't think existed, but also learns about the portal between realms and how she opened it by awakening the Quicksilver. That gets us to the main plot of the story, and before I continue, let's talk about all the characters, and I'm going to rank them from most to least annoying. Number 13 is Danya. Danya is a warrior, and I'll talk a little bit more about her later on in the video, but she at one point attacks Kingfisher. She's very angry and aggressive. She loses her hand in a very dumb, preventable way. She almost ruins the relationship with the witches altogether, and anyways, Danya's just the worst. Number 12, we have Hayden. Hayden is so stupid. Like, He gets caught right away in the very beginning of the book. He can't stay out of trouble for 5 seconds, even though his sister is like risking her life every single day trying to keep them alive. If he wasn't so stupid, this book wouldn't have even happened. I guess that's the point, but we don't like Hayden. Next is King Bellicon. He is the most annoying and least impressive of all the villains. He's just angry and bitter and doesn't even do anything cool. Next we have Queen Madra. She is mean, but she's all right because she's a human that made herself immortal, so that's pretty badass. In number 9, we have Everlane. She is part of the royal family. She's King Bellicon's daughter and also Kingfisher's half-sister. They share the same mom. Even though Everlane is 1,486 years old, she just feels like a really immature character. At number 8, we have Captain Heron. He is Queen Madra's crony. He's right about in the middle of this list because he is kind of cool, but also he just does whatever the queen tells him, so he's not that special. Also, this is a more secondary character. At number 7, we have Malcolm, and he is the coolest of all the villains. He has a whole army, he eliminated anybody that might be close to him in power, and he's still kind of funny and flirty, so I love that for him. Number 6, we have Ceres. She is not my number 1 because she is just kind of going with the flow here. She's all right. She's really not the best character here, but she's fine. She's good. She's a good character. Number 5, we have Renfus. He's kind of a minor character, doesn't stand out that much, but he is a good guy with a good moral compass. He doesn't like the blood oath between Kingfisher and Ceres, and I'll get a little bit more into that later on. Otherwise, he's not that big of a character in this book. Number 4, we have Carrion. Carrion is low-key super funny. He's a very refreshing character, he's good looking, and he has a cool backstory, and I like Carrion very much. I hope there's a lot more of him in book 2. At number 3, we have Onyx. Onyx, funny enough, is a white fox. He is Ceres's pet, and I just like him. I just think he's cute. Number 2, we have Lorith. Lorith is a warrior, and he just seems like a good guy. He likes to sing his songs, and he's very loyal to Kingfisher. Kingfisher saved Lorith's life once and gave him part of his soul. So they're connected in a way, and Lorith is honestly just like a good guy that looks out for his friends. And number 1 is, of course, Kingfisher. I was thinking about putting somebody else at the top of this list, but I can't. I mean, it's Kingfisher. How can you put anyone else at the top here? He's 1,730 years old. He's a major hottie, a great friend, has a way with words, and he is a generous lover. Now that we got those characters out of the way, let's go further into the plot. Ceres is in Yvelia for about a week as she heals from her injuries. She gets to know Everlane, Kingfisher's sister. She learns that there are 7 gods that are worshipped in the Fae realm. Those 7 gods used to be worshipped in the human realm as well, but have mostly been forgotten. Everlane and Kingfisher share a mom, but their mom died in childbirth. Once Ceres is feeling better, she gets brought in front of the king, and Kingfisher gets brought there as well. Important to note that Kingfisher's actually been missing for like over 100 years. We think that he was punished, he was maybe in exile, we don't really know for what. We're trying to get more information from this story about what's going on. But it's clear that the king hates him. He brings him in front of everyone, he talks about this dog, and honestly, Kingfisher's acting kind of rabid and crazy. Ceres is still wearing the necklace that he put on her when he took her through the Quicksilver, and she hasn't yet given it back, which is the reason why he's acting that way. He needs it to protect himself from the Quicksilver. When you go through Quicksilver without a relic, the Quicksilver goes in you and drives you crazy. The king is about to have Kingfisher killed, but then an oracle steps in and says that he cannot kill him because there is a prophecy. Bellicon tells Ceres that she needs to awaken the Quicksilver and open the portal between realms, and she also needs to create these relics to help people get through them. Ceres gets to work at the library doing some research with the librarian, Rosarius. She's trying to learn everything that she can about alchemy because now she's expected to be this alchemist when she doesn't actually have the skills. She slowly starts to get to know Kingfisher. He kind of taunts her, and he can also smell when she's turned on. He also tells her that he thinks that Madra tricked Bellicon and cut off his trade lines by sealing the passageway between the realms. She used the sword Solace to do that. When I read this for the second time, Kingfisher seemed a lot chattier than I remember. He actually is like in her space all the time, shows up in her room one time to eat, he's at the forge all the time when she's there. Kingfisher calls her Osha, which is short for Oshalith. In the beginning of the book, he tells her that this is the name of a butterfly, and when he describes it, he says, "They hatch, live, and die all in one day. The cold kills them very fast." She thinks it's an insult, but we find out later that it actually means most sacred. I really like that there's a butterfly on the original cover of this book. We're still in Yvelia. Ceres is playing around with the forge, but she's having a really hard time. She can't really do anything with Quicksilver at all. Kingfisher forces her to hold it and says, "Can you hear it? What is it saying?" And it's saying, "Anorath more." Kingfisher is really affected by this phrase, but he doesn't say why, and he doesn't tell her what it means. Things sometimes get a little bit heated between them at the forge, and this one time, back in her room, Kingfisher licks his bloody lip, and she gets turned on, and he knows. He also tells her that he can hear her heartbeat going crazy when they're together or when she looks at him. Ceres realizes that she needs to make these relics in order to facilitate travel between realms through Quicksilver, but she's really struggling to do this. In the forge, at one point, a fox attacks her, and she keeps him as a pet and names him Onyx, so he's with her for the rest of the story. After a little makeout session in the forge and a little bit of pickpocketing, Ceres tries to trick Kingfisher and escape. He catches her, and he's very angry. He makes her enter into a blood oath with him. He promises to go and try to get Hayden, Ceres' brother, from the human realm and bring him back. And in return, she has to listen to him and do whatever he says. Foolishly, she agrees to it, and she later regrets this decision because who Kingfisher brings back is not Hayden, but Carrion Swift. He says, "Oh, well, the smell of your blood brought me to Carrion Swift," but it wasn't the smell of her blood. It was the smell of another one of her perfumes that was on him. So now he knows that she got it on with Carrion, and he is not particularly happy about that. Kingfisher's like, "All right, enough of Yvelia, let's get out of here." They're on their way to Cahlish, which is where Kingfisher is from, and that's where he lives. Kingfisher, Renfis, Ceres, and Carrion go together. Once Carrion is conscious again, he lets Ceres know that her brother is alive. Renfis is not happy about the blood oath that Kingfisher struck with Ceres, and he thinks that it's unethical. That's why we like our boy Renfis. Ceres is working in the forge during the day, and in the evening she's having dinner with Kingfisher. They're sitting at opposite ends of this giant dining table when these feeders come in through the windows. They're kind of like vampires, but they've been dead for so long and they're just starving, and they're kind of just mindless creatures at this point. Ceres gets clawed and needs to be healed. The next time she has dinner with Kingfisher, she sits in the spot beside him where normally his wife would sit. Ceres doesn't know this, but Kingfisher doesn't stop her. In the morning, they go to the war camp. When they're finally at the war camp, which is right at the border between them and the vampires, they go to Kingfisher's tent and they have this like hot and heavy makeout sesh. It's brief, but it's enough time for Kingfisher's canines to graze Ceres' neck and draw blood. We'll circle back on that later. A meeting is called. They go to this meeting. Ceres is sharing a little quiche with Carrion, which she later gets in trouble for. And Kingfisher's like, "Never share food with Carrion ever again." She's like, "Okay." They're eating this quiche, and then this warrior Danya comes out, and she's mad, and she's like yelling at Kingfisher. She thinks that he abandoned them. She goes to attack him, and she has a god sword. Like, it's a sword that's imbued with magic from the gods. Ceres sees this, and she gets scared, and she wants to stop it, and it shatters this sword into 1,000 pieces. There's a whole ruckus, and we learn that the vampires are trying to cross the ice to get to the other side, so quickly all the Fae run out and they break the ice in order to stop the vampires. Realistically, the Fae only have about a year before vampires win this war. We get a little bit deeper into the love story here. The first time that Ceres and Kingfisher go all the way, she gets this tattoo that appears on her chest of a bird. Shortly after, Kingfisher also finds out that she was sterilized as a child, as are 70% of girls born in the Third Ward. A quote that I love from Kingfisher is when Carrion calls Ceres Sunshine, and Kingfisher says, "Don't call her Sunshine, because she is moonlight, the mist that shrouds the mountains, the bite of electricity in the air before a storm, the smoke that rolls across a battlefield before the killing starts. You have no idea what she is, what she could be. You should call her Majesty." We learn a little bit more about the teeth grazing the neck incident. So a long time ago, there was a blood curse, and it made everyone kind of essentially into vampires. There was a cure for this blood curse, and most of the Fae took it, but they still kept the canines. They don't need to drink blood to survive, but they can draw blood for sexual purposes to heighten pleasure in the moment. This is dangerous, though, because it's hard to stop. There were some vampires that chose to keep the blood curse, and specifically Malcolm was one of them. He then killed all the other more powerful vampires to become the strongest one. Now it's been like 1,000 years and he's getting more and more powerful and he looks very youthful. Kingfisher takes Cerys to Ballard, which is like a little town, and they go on a cute little date night. This was kind of strange because there's like war and vampires and everyone's dying and all this stuff's happening. And he's like, let's go on a little date. So they have a lot of fun, and then they go to his apartment that he casually owns there. They decide they're going to sleep in separate rooms, but at night Cerys hears Kingfisher screaming, so she goes in to help him. She stays with him for hours, and while they're talking and she's holding his head on her lap, she actually gets more tattoos. She notices them in the morning and he takes them away, but tells her that he can give them back in a few weeks or a month or so if she decides she wants them back. This is also when they start to communicate telepathically. She tries to talk to the Quicksilver at one point that's in his body and asks it to leave, but it says that it can't leave because it is part of Kingfisher. A little while later, Cerys learns from a healer, Taelena, what the marks mean. The marks are a sign of a true mating bond, which apparently hasn't existed in so many years. She asks about the script that she saw on her arm as well, and Taelena tells her that that is a god binding, so that is the blessing from the gods themselves. She talks to Kingfisher about it, and he says, yep, we're true fated mates, but I'm not going to force that on you. I cannot reject the bond, but you don't need to accept it. He also tells her that his mom was an oracle and that she predicted Cerys' arrival in his life. Cerys is back in the forge and she finally figures out how to get Quicksilver to cooperate. She just needs to talk to it and ask it what it wants. And what it wants is something special that the Quicksilver gets to keep. It agrees on a song. She's trying to fix this sword that she shattered into a bunch of pieces. And Lorith, the warrior that is also a mediocre singer-songwriter, agrees to sing a song for the Quicksilver. So he sings the song, the Quicksilver loves it, and takes it, so he doesn't remember it anymore. In exchange for the song, the Quicksilver fixes the sword and imbues it with magic, but it says that it will choose the owner of the sword, and the chosen owner is Lorith. Danya is really mad about this because it's her sword. She tries to take it back, even though you cannot touch a sword that's been bonded to somebody else. It will hurt you. She knows this, she still tries to grab it, and she loses her hand. Now the vampires are breaking through again, but now there are a lot more of them and they're coming. From across the lake, we see Everlane, and she has been enthralled by Malcolm. This means that she is going to want to complete any desire for him, and she is linked to him now. And if within a certain amount of time he doesn't let her bite him back, she's just going to die and then come back as a feeder. In exchange for Everlane, he wants Cerys, the alchemist. The Fae enlist the help of witches to break the enthrallment for Everlane. Danya almost ruins this meeting, but there is one witch that agrees to help. Now, for some reason, Kingfisher and Cerys go back to Ballard. They're like, hey, let's have one last night together. During this night, in the heat of the moment, when his soul is wrapped around hers, he accepts the bond, and he gets a special mating tattoo on him. He tells her, hey, no pressure, you still don't have to accept it. I accepted it, but you don't have to. Then in the morning, she wakes up to an empty bed, and he already left, and he just left her a little letter, and so she goes after him. Everlane is rescued, and the same portal that she comes through actually sucks up Cerys, Renfis, and Carrion. They end up reunited with our dear friends, Captain Heron and Malcolm. Kingfisher's there too, and by Malcolm's sides, we have Belicon and Queen Madra. Turns out they were allies all along, and there was really no war between the Fae and the vampires. It was just King Belicon feeding his brother's army. Up until this point, Kingfisher wasn't allowed to talk about his time in captivity or in exile or wherever he was. There's an oath that prevents him from talking about it, but now they lift the oath and they're like, hey, let's talk about where you've been all these years. Turns out that Malcolm's army was attacking Gillithry. Kingfisher wanted to stop it, but the vampires had already bit everybody in the city. They decided to flip a coin for the fate of the people in the city, and Malcolm never let the coin drop. He scooped it up and he captured Kingfisher. Kingfisher's people burned down the whole town, and Kingfisher himself got trapped in this labyrinth under Malcolm's supervision for 110 years. The only reason that Kingfisher even escaped is that Cerys activated the Quicksilver and he was able to go through. There was Quicksilver in this labyrinth for whatever reason. We also learn here that Bellicon killed Kingfisher's mom right after she gave birth to Everlane because he called her a liar, even though she's an oracle and a fae and she could not lie. Kingfisher's mad, so he stabs Bellicon. This is where everything gets really intense, so let me just break it down for you in an easily digestible way. All hell breaks loose. Cerys and Kingfisher are inside the labyrinth and they're fighting a giant spider. Cerys tries to talk to the Quicksilver and asks for it to tell her where the coin is. So they're looking for the coin. They want it to drop because the deal hasn't finished. They need that coin to drop. She tells the Quicksilver, please, I want to help Kingfisher, my mate. By saying mate out loud, she accepts the mating bond. The Quicksilver agrees in exchange for a little favor, TBD. She's like, yeah, little favor, whatever. Yeah, I'll do it. Just tell me where it is. She finds the coin. It was inside the spider. So she gets the coin. But then in the meantime, while she's getting this coin, Malcolm bites Carrion. Carrion was kind of taunting him and trying to get him to bite him, honestly. And it's a good thing that he did because Carrion is not human at all. He is fae and he's just been hiding out in the human realm for like 1,000 years. Turns out that Carrion's actually from the Dianthus bloodline, and that is the one bloodline that Malcolm cannot drink from and it will actually poison him. He thought that he had already killed off this bloodline, but he didn't know that Carrion was alive. Malcolm is literally deteriorating after this bite, but he still has enough strength to get the coin from Cerys and puts it in a little pouch. He then stabs her and he's like, all right, well, you're not going to survive this stab, so see you later. And then she stabs him, and even though he's still kind of healing, she was able to pickpocket him and take the coin back and drop it on the ground. He's like, no, and all the Gilly souls are now freed, and she cuts off Malcolm's head. And scene. What happens next is very important to the sequel. Cerys is dying because she's been stabbed by Malcolm. Taladeus is another high-ranking vampire, and he was kind of concealing how strong he was from Malcolm because he didn't want Malcolm to see him as a threat and kill him. But he is essentially the next strongest vampire after Malcolm. He shows up and he says to Kingfisher, because apparently they're old friends and they know each other for a long time, hey, I can turn her into a vampire and that'll save her. Kingfisher agrees, and while she's being turned, or right after she's being turned, the Quicksilver calls her and he says, now is the time I want to call in my favor, come talk to me. So she goes through a portal and she shows up on this field, and then there's these two women that are looking at her and like giggling. The two women are actually the twin goddesses, Bal and Mithin. They ask about her sex life with Kingfisher, which is weird, but okay. She then talks to Xerath, god of chaos. He explains that she was originally supposed to be born fae, but the gods changed this because they didn't want her to cross paths with Kingfisher. They crossed paths anyways, obviously, and he gave them the god binding by blessing their mating bond. In order to prevent any other interference from gods, he needs to change her into something that has never been seen before. The universe cannot focus on that which it does not recognize. He turns her into half fae, half vampire. Now, she wakes up and she finds out that she's got pointy ears and pointy teeth. She is now half fae, half vampire, the first of her kind, and she's about to be queen of the vampires. Turns out when she killed our boy Malcolm, he had no successor, and she, as his killer, gets to become the queen. And that's where we end off, ladies and gentlemen, and that is why we need to immediately jump into Brimstone to find out what happens. Here's some things that I wish for from Brimstone. I want more Carrion. I love Carrion as a character, and I want to see more of that. Maybe he'll even get like a little love story. I would love that. I don't want to hear about Hayden or Dana ever again. Please, please, Callie Hart, I hope you did not put them into this book. I'm hoping that now, since Kingfisher will be the king of Yvelia and Cerys is going to be the queen of the vampires, that there's going to be some peace, but I'm curious to see how they're going to make that work, because don't the feeders still need to eat? Like, how is she going to deal with the bloodthirst of the vampires? As much as I love Kingfisher and Cerys together, I wonder if there is going to be a plotline where Taladeus pines after her as well, because he turned her, so they are also linked. An unrealistic wish I have is a better cover and more cohesive book set. I love the original cover of Quicksilver, and I'm a little bit disappointed that it changed to this and that the new book has a matching cover of this. I mean, it's just text. The original cover was more interesting. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming recaps, book hauls, reading wrap-ups, or any other fun stuff. Let's dive into Brimstone.